I'm entrusting my lover to your care, Aurelius. I ask a modest favor. If you ever longed for anything and wanted it kept pure and chaste, then watch over my boy, protect him. I'm not concerned about the public, the crowd that hurries around trying to make a living. It's you I'm worried about. You and your dong, a menace to boys in general. Good lads or rotten brats, no one's safe. Have anyone you want, as much as you want. If you see 'em, grab 'em. With this one exception. That's not a lot to ask. But if infatuation and brainless lust should lead you to commit, you bastard, such a crime, to wit, poaching my boy, then savage destiny will beat you down with grief. For adulterers are, by tradition, punished thus, as your legs are wrenched wide apart and tied, your back door open for the executioner to cram with radishes and wriggling fish. Aurelius, you nasty little thing. Put some clothes on or something. You look like hunger in an allegory. And the way you ogle my boyfriend, a staring starvation. You aren't subtle about it either. Wherever I look, there's Aurelius, cracking jokes for the boy, hanging on his every word. Think you'll get into his pants? You'll blow me first. I'd almost be willing to look the other way, but if the boy went off with a charity case like you, could I be sure he'd have clothes and a roof overhead? I wouldn't even mind if you went leching after him on a full stomach. But the way you lick your lips, when did you last eat? It's unpleasant. Quit while you're ahead, Aurelius. Don't make me force-feed you. Juventius, flower of all the young men who were, are, or will be, I'd sooner have you give that man the wealth of Midas, which he'd need to get himself out of debt, than let him make love to you. He's a real nice guy, is he? That real nice guy doesn't own 2 shirts and he uses a shopping bag for a suitcase. Say what you like. A goddamn shopping bag. Furius owns neither slave nor strongbox. He couldn't host so much as a spider or a bedbug. His hearth doesn't house a living coal. But he certainly has a father and a stepmother whose teeth could crunch through flint. You get on just fine, Furius, with your dad and his dried stick of a wife. No wonder. Indigestion's no problem. You've nothing to fear from fire. Your roof's not about to cave in. Theft is impossible. Your death would make no inheritors. You're exempt from every peril. Isn't it great? Sun, cold, and hunger have given you bodies drier than horn. You're free from sweat, saliva, mucus, phlegm. And as if that were insufficiently spick and span, your ass is clean as a salt shaker. You don't crap 10 times in a year. And when you do, it's harder than a bean or a pebble. You could crush it in your hands and never stain a finger. Don't belittle your blessings, Furius. Enjoy what you have. And quit pestering me for that loan. You're fortunate enough already. Furius is so poor. The bugs in his house took out a second mortgage on the Roach Motel.
We may assume that, after being the heroes of the preceding poems, Furius and Aurelius decided to write a few verses against the cat. They probably suggested that he was immodest. No doubt they asserted that he was not a nice person, and truly they poked fun at his poem about wanting all those kisses. Catullus' reply has become his best remembered, if not best loved, poem.
I fuck your asses. I feed you my dick, Aurelius. You love it. And, cocksucking Furius, you said that I lack modesty, basing your charge on a few little verses about a boy? Of course, a God-fearing poet has to lead an upright life. That's no reason his poems shouldn't live it up. Poems which are witty, elegant compositions, even if they are a bit unbuttoned, even if they do scratch you where it always itches, even if they do get people steamed up. I don't mean just schoolboys, no, even big hairy studs, real animals, guys who need both hands to lift their dicks. You thought I was naughty for writing the poem about wanting a million kisses? Well, fuck you. When you see a pretty boy with a slave auctioneer, the assumption is he wants to be sold. Out of the entire Roman people, couldn't you find a classier man to have a crush on? Juventius? Only him? From the sickly town of Pisaurus? He's paler than a gilded statue. He charms you? You dare prefer him to me? Dig yourself, kid. Wake up. No one escapes my lines. Rufa, the carrot-haired girl from Bologna, gives blowjobs to her little brother red-headed Rufus. You know who she is. Menenius' wife, the one you always see in the pauper's graveyard grabbing snacks from food offerings set on the pyres. Whenever she chases a loaf rolling out of the blaze, the unshaven slave who tends those flames runs over and gives her a whack. Let a Magus be born from the criminal coupling of Gellius with his mother, and let that child be educated in entrail divination according to the Persian rite. For if it's true what they say about the Persians' unholy religion, a Magus can only be born of a mother and son. Only thus will the gods accept his chanted praises as the fatty guts melt away in the altar's flame.
Priapus, child of Venus and Bacchus, a pot-bellied garden gnome with an oversized prick, sort of like a teapot, represents a universal idea, the scarecrow fertility god. Under this name he was first worshipped on the Hellespontic coast of Greece, and there chiefly at Lampsacus, the only city to give him founder's honors by stamping his image on the coinage. From there his worship spread. Priapus traveled east in Alexander's train, winning hearts for Hellenism. Alexandria became his metropolitan see, where he was celebrated with poetry and public worship. From there he traveled to Rome, where, by the time of Augustus, no garden was elegant without him. Catullus is credited with several Priapeia, the numbers 18 to 20 deleted from modern editions, and now to be found among the Virgilian Apocrypha, as well as this authenticated fragment.
I dedicate and consecrate these woods to you, Priapus, founder of Lampsacus, whose shores are richer in oysters than all the rest of the Hellespontic coast. I'd like to try it and see. From Brother Death. Troy, that damned and criminal city, mass grave of Europe and Asia Minor, Troy that burned the corpses of heroes and turned to ashes so much courage and worth. Troy, my brother's killer, my brother, grabbed from my arms, my son put out. When you died, our whole family became like the dead. We buried life and pleasure with you. Your love had made us live. You couldn't be placed among family graves, among familiar stones. Hope-destroying Troy keeps you. Your grave is lost to us in far and foreign Troy. From the Mythological Poems. You could see Ariadne on the shore of Naxos, in the tide line's watery noise, staring out after Theseus, who falls away into a vanish, ferried out of sight by no slow boat. She stands there, madness building up inside her, not believing she's really seeing this. She's just then waking up from her cheating sleep and starting to comprehend that she's been ditched, left sorrow-sick on the blank, unpeopled sand. The young man, of memory conveniently weak, fled, his oars beating back the waves, his meaningless promises blown in the storm, words in the wind. The daughter of royal Minos, standing in the seaweed, looks out after him with sad, sweet eyes, staring, rigid, looking like that famous statue of the Bacchante, stunned by the god. The sea breeze doffs her gauzy turban, her dress falls delicate down from shoulder, frees her firm little breasts. Then everything slips from her body, and the waves roll up to touch. Poor girl, Venus made you crazy with non-stop tortures of love. Ever since Theseus left the sweep of his home shores and came to a harsh king's Crete. A god-sent plague had made Athens agree to pay for having killed a Cretan prince. They sent a yearly gift to boys and girls to be Minotaur's dinner. Athens' walls narrowed on the people so sadly harassed. Then Theseus chanced his own adventurous body so his friends wouldn't have a monster's belch for a funeral oration. He pushed off in a light boat on a gentle wind, came to tyrant Minos' castle. 14 years old, perfumy and warm from her mother's lap, the royal daughter saw him and her eye-beams lit. Before she could look down or turn away, love seared into her like a branding iron. The damned, the holy thief of hearts, who mingles our anxieties with joy, made her moan under her breath and shiver for the yellow-haired stranger. And she paled like the gleam on gold when she learned he'd come courting glory or death from her brother, the monster. Silent prayers and promises rose from her lips to the gods like incense, sweet and useless. Nothing could stop the heroes in the Minotaur's collision. And the Minotaur fell, like a wide-branching oak or a pitch-sweating pine atop Mount Taurus, twisted back and ripped out in the whoosh of a storm wind spinning insane. All its wooden roots yanked from the ground, it crashes headlong, busting up forest and snapping off boughs far around. Thus Theseus decked that bull-browed psychopath, beat that huge, brutal body down, goring only air with its horns. The hero turned back, big with glory, through the labyrinth's mixed-up paths unerrored on the trail of thread he'd left. Then Ariadne shipped with him to Naxos' wave-sprayed shore, but he did a quick dissolve the second sleep put out her lights. Many times in heart's madness she emptied her chest in clear, loud calls and cries. She climbed the steep, rough mountains to plunge her gaze over the open sea's flowing, tremendous desert. Then she ran down and right out into it, holding up her fine, soft skirts. The slapping waves softly burst brine against her knees. Wet-faced with tears, gasping out cold sobs, she told it, "You took me away from my father, my house, the altars of my gods, just so you could lose me on the first empty shore. I believed your fawning voice. I doomed my brother by helping you. Did a lioness in labor drop you in the desert? Did the sea spit you up? Did you swim up into existence from a pool of quicksand? This is how you pay back the rescue of your life? At least you could have taken me with you. I'd have been a happy slave to wash your feet, only to make up your purple-quilted bed. Now you're out in mid-ocean. I'm on the beachhead of nowhere. I wish you'd never come to Crete, bringing the bold, terrible tribute. I'm oceaned off from everyone. If I could leave now, would I go home to be the guest of honor at my brother's funeral? Maybe follow my lover now bending his ship's tough oars against the ocean to get away from me? Furies, snake-haired punishers of men, bring my pain to him," she said. Jove heard. The universe nodded assent, disheveling sea, lurching earth, flickering all the stars.
This is a Spring Audio production. Copyright 1991. All rights reserved.